hand to attract the attention of the teacher. The teacher, sitting at the remote studio, can accept the query by clicking on the computer screen. Immediately, the student will appear on the screen and will have the question answered.
Hi, good evening folks, welcome back, and we'll start with the small set of discussion on what we're going to do in the contact program. First I'll start with the questions that we have. So we have questions from Rajiv, Purna, Siddharth and Divakar. So we'll start with Rajiv. Rajiv. Hi. Very good. How are you?
Okay, my question was simple one. There seems to be a prescribed reading, right? Is there? I just wanted to know the prescribed readings before coming to class.
Okay. Yes, there is a document that will be. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's one. Second would be to know the local people. We plan to probably get there on the Friday by 9 a.m. Right? That's where it starts. What you expect is that we should stay overnight on the Friday so that we can do the group activity, right?
Yes. Okay. There are two questions here. First one, for the readings bit, I would certainly send you some readings. It's a 40-page document that you're supposed to read before you actually come to the session. You'll actually get the document on Tuesday. I'll send you a PDF for the document. It's a MarkStat simulation document that I would want you to go through. And the second thing that you will have to go through is the Volvo case. So there is an internationalization thing. So try to go through the Volvo case. We are going to have a guest faculty who is going to do a session with you on international strategies during that contact program. So he might actually want to discuss the case. So I'm just talking to him for him to really discuss the case. So that's how it is. Second thing, since we are expecting that we would have to do group work in the evening, late in the evening, because the contact session would close at about 9 o'clock, and then I would expect you to work in the evening for about 2 to 3 hours on the simulation. So that would warrant that you actually stay back. So in case if you really want to go after 11:30, you're most welcome. I really don't mind. So that is what the take is. So and then if you're able to be back at 8 o'clock in the morning, so so be it. So it's going to be your personal choice. I'll really not say that you stay back, but I would, since it's a very short time, I would want to extract the maximum possible that we are able to do in these 2 days. So simulation is important. I want to do that. I'm still struggling to see how would I want to do one video case with you to really pull out time and things. So let's see if we. I'll get back to you on that. We might actually do a nightish session. So we might actually do a session from 9 to 11 with me, and then you could actually do the group activity between 11 to 1. So that is what we could look at. So I think the message is loud and clear that you're supposed to stay back as much as possible. But then still, if you want to go back, you're most welcome, and that's how it is going to be. Sure. So that's what it is. Any other questions on this, Rajiv? Okay, so let me just go to Purna. Yes, Purna.
About the project work.
Purna, could you just be a little louder? I was just not able to hear you.
What about the project work?
We would discuss it there. In fact, I think I did go through your discussion thread on what do you call, what's going to be the project and things. I think I really want to discuss the project there during the program, and then we'll have some time to really submit it. In fact, the discussion thread that I actually noticed, one of them was about the project. So project we would discuss when you're visiting. The second thing, or the second discussion thread that I actually saw in your mail was how many sessions after the meeting. So we are really going to require at least 3 more sessions. In fact, I would rather think that we would require about 4 more sessions after we've actually closed our what do you call, the campus visit thing. And of course, we will not have a session on Sunday following the contact program. That means we'll not have a session on the 11th, and we'll not have a session on the 18th, and that is the day which is immediately after Diwali. So we'll not be having a session during that time as well. So just a preliminary things here. Anything else, Purna?
No, nothing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Siddharth, you got something to say on this?
Just some questions regarding the logistics, and I may have missed something on the thread, but could you just repeat or just brief us again about the logistics and whom to contact then, and the reservations and stuff like that?
Wow.
At the guest house.
Seriously, I really don't have any information on this, Siddharth. I'm so sorry about it. I think Rashmi would be the right person to contact on this. So why don't you talk to Rashmi?
Okay.
Very frankly, I don't even know the location where we are doing this actually. So I also have to find it the first day. So that's how it is. So I'm so sorry for it. But then we will start dot on time. We'll start at 9 o'clock and we'll go on till 9 o'clock on the first day. And then of course we'll have some group work, and then we'll try to close on the second day by about 6:30. So that you're able to go back. In fact, I think you're from Lucknow, so you can take your favorite Lucknow mail, which leaves at 10 o'clock. So we'll make sure that you catch your Lucknow mail. Sure. So that's how it is going to be. Okay, Divakar from Bombay.
Hi sir, good evening.
Hi Divakar, I hope you are not a MNS supporter, right?
No sir, I'm not an MNS supporter.
No, I said Bombay, so I thought like suddenly there would be some flare up happening here.
Nothing. I'm done with my questions. Possibly I was asking the same question which Rajiv has put up. So we can proceed with the session.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Divakar. Then so we'll now we have some hands which have got raised. Let me just see. Okay. So what we are going to do today is that we would actually do two sets of things. We have two cases that we have to do today. One of them is a case on what do you call De Beers. That's a tacit collusion thing that we are doing, and the second one that we are supposed to do today is Eli Lilly. So we'll start with the case on tacit collusion. In fact, if you really look at this case, this is not a discussion case. This is more as a case which I would really want you to look at in terms of some information and how collusion could actually happen, what is going to be taken as collusion, or what could be taken as cartelization, and so on and so forth. So this is where I'm actually coming from. In fact, this is in continuation to the last discussion that we had, and that was on competitiveness and behavior of firms and so on and so forth, and how regulatory systems could actually have an impact on performance of firms, and that was the Indian flour mill case. So following from that, so if you really look at this idea of collusion, what do you understand by collusion? Anybody? What do you think is cartelization, or what do you think is collusion? Anybody who would like to answer this? Yes, Visu.
Am I audible?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, where this tacit collusion occurs when cartels are illegal or overt collusion is absent.
Okay.
Maybe we can say in another way that two firms are agreed to play a certain strategy without explicitly saying so.
Could you just go a little deeper into this? What do you mean by two firms doing a strategy without, what was the statement?
Yeah, see, it related to the pricing leadership. If somebody dominating the market and they fix their prices and they consolidate other people who involved in this, and they basically lead the market with the price what they are fixing it.
Okay. So you think it could be a price fixing behavior wherein 2 or 3 players could come together to really fix the price, and they could charge supernormal money from consumers. Could you give me an Indian example of this sort?
Earlier it was like BSNL were there.
Okay, so you feel BSNL was supercharging and there was some kind of a collusion that was happening.
Yeah, long time they were a monopoly.
Okay.
And they didn't have any competitors also.
So that would be monopolistic behavior, or that would be collusionary tactic. Because if you really look at it in terms of collusion, there have to be 2 players for sure. So when you talk about somebody like BSNL was probably looking at having something called as monopolistic behavior. So that's a typical behavior wherein they would always throw out their underperformance is always going to be paid for by the consumer. So is that what you're really trying to tell me?
If you take the real estate example, there most of the time they dominated, they fixed the rates on the square feet levels, and now the apartment culture has started, and so it diversified from, and the different competitors they came, and but
okay, yeah, please.
But they now consolidated under one roof, and some of the giants are totally controlling that area cost.
Okay. Anything else? Not a problem. Let's actually go and talk to Rajiv on this. So let me see what Rajiv has to say here. Yes, Rajiv.
Am I audible?
Yes, absolutely. Could you just be a little louder?
Yeah. Is it better now?
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect.
Better now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, you asked about cartel and collusion.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'd probably give, I wouldn't be able to differentiate in the two, but I think in principle, cartelization or collusion, as we saw in De Beers, clearly a case where industry players come together and either control or reduce output in order to maintain or maximize price.
Okay.
From a very clear economic definition. Plus, it could also be to prevent other players from coming in, divide the market, stuff like that. But I think the end objective is let's keep the price high, or let's, we all have our output together. Let's decide, basically to avoid some of this free competition, free market principles. So reduce competition. Let's all not produce high because the demand is low, so that the price remains firm. So something like that, Or let's not sell below a certain price. Or you sell in the north, I'll sell in the south. Let's both increase the price. Cartelization. Collusion, cartelization also therefore means we come together and decide to act like that, whether it is OPEC, whether it's, let's say, the theater, whatever association or something like that. Collusion also would be similar, right?
In fact, for the purpose of this, for the purpose of the course, we'll actually use these terms as synonymous, cartelization and collusionary tactics.
Okay.
So we'll actually use it as similar. We'll not really go into the details of how these two words could be different, but for the purpose of the course, we use them as same thing. But what you said, Rajiv, was they could actually decide on prices, and they could actually divide the market. One of them could say it's going to be north or south or whatever. But could you give me an Indian example in this case? Have you seen Indian firms doing this? In fact, I can think of at least 2 different industries who have actually followed this strategy in India. And one happened about 10 years back, and probably 8 to 10 years back, and another one which just happened recently in the last 6 months.
Well, recently in the last 6 months,
It was not something which was very explicit.
Yeah.
It was not very explicit. Exactly. You bang on the target there. In fact,
Jet and Kingfisher came together and said, let's not kill each other in fares. So probably they want to bring an end to the so-called
price war.
Drive to a zero cost. Yeah.
Yes.
That's one. The 8 to 10 years back, you'll have to throw some more hints. Which industry? Give us a.
If I give you the name of the industry, then you know. Everybody in the industry came together, and the government actually had to come down very, very strongly to kill that cartel, and government did it effectively. That whole thing is very important from a point of view that we understand what is the theory of cartelization, then how cartels actually happen, and how governments could actually break the cartels. Okay, now let me actually throw you a hint. Government actually imposed they used to levy import duty for that product at one point in time, and then they actually just opened up the market, and that product was allowed to come into India. After the cartel actually happened, and then the cartel effectively died after that. Okay, now it's a very significant thing which makes the housing market run.
Housing market, cement?
Exactly.
Or
exactly. It was the cement industry.
The cement cartel.
Yes, so if you really look at the cement industry actually did that, and what they were actually doing was that they would typically decide, okay, now we are going to charge something like 180 rupees or 190 rupees per bag, and that's going to be the same price across the country, and so on and so forth. And the government came down extremely heavily by saying that we are going to reduce the import duty on it. And that is how the cartel actually got down. So, but if you really look at this whole idea of cartels and everything, so there's something very interesting. So there has to be, the first principle on cartelization is going to be that we have to all the players need to have one single idea on which they're really thinking. So whether it is economic profits or markets or whatever, and that is where, and in this case, what is going to happen is that consumer is going to suffer. So the basic idea of cartelization is that consumer is going to suffer, and it is against the idea of market economics. The second thing is, just in case, if you really talk about from a corporate viewpoint, if this is a strategy that corporate needs to follow, what do you think is one or two principles that the corporate need to follow to really create a cartel?
Well, you cannot create a cartel or the people who want to create a cartel cannot create one till they are either substantial market shareholders in that industry.
Okay, what else?
So, for example, in the Jet and Kingfisher, very visible, they together control 50-60%. So if they come together, they can form a cartel. Okay, what else?
Okay, now the basic principle, let's take this ahead. This is important. If you really look at it, if there are two people who are really trying to form a cartel, and if they try to break the rules of the cartel, and then what is going to happen is that the cartel is going to go down, or it's going to break, right? So if there is one player within that cartel who's going to break the rule, how do you think that the players within the cartel have to treat him?
Oh, they will treat means what? They will, I think, completely. They'll want to kill him.
Exactly. So that
business, that is.
Exactly.
So then he breaks the trust or whatever.
So that's it. So the next principle is that if you're really doing this, then the punishment has to be extremely exemplary and swift. If somebody tries to break the cartel, so this is another principle that we really have to look at. So the punishment has to be exemplary and swift. In fact, if you really look at this whole idea, let me just. I'll get back to you, Rajiv. Let me just see what Diwakar has to say on this. Yes, Diwakar.
Yeah, is it audible?
Absolutely.
My take on this was the forces align for a common motive. So it can be a profit, it can be the market share, it can be the supply, as we have seen in the previous case. So
okay.
Those are the signs for the cartel.
Fair. Let's try to build this up, build the whole thing up. In fact, if you really look at it, typically a lot of people believe that cartels are something which which can just be formed by, say, governments or companies or whatever. In fact, if you really look at it, like the cartels which are operating in the world, quite a lot of them are actually controlled by the government. Say the OPEC cartel. It is actually countries who have created this cartel. They actually define the output. They define what should be the price of oil and so on and so forth. So because they are actually defining the output. But these kind of cartels cannot actually be broken at points in time because it's the states who are actually coming down together. And in this case, it becomes extremely difficult for any kind of an intervention to happen so that you're able to break this cartel. But I think then there are options like wars that actually go ahead. If you really look at this whole idea of the OPEC cartel, what is the best way to really break the hegemony of the oil cartel that actually exists? So the best possible way is to actually control oil fields somewhere else. In fact, if you really look at it, there is a huge economic reason. There are a lot of theories which say that there could have actually been a huge economic reason for the Iraq war, because the economic reason could have been that Iraq is one of the most significant players or countries in the industry in the world which controls a lot of oil reserves, and if US was able to get hold of these oil reserves, that would have actually meant that they're able to effectively bring down the power of the cartel called OPEC. So these kind of things would actually happen, but we'll not really talk about the geopolitical things here. What we would really look at is in terms of like how corporates could behave, how individuals could behave, and so on and so forth. So if you really look at it, one of the most significant cartels that we really talk about is the mafia. And in fact, if you really talk about the mafia is very swift in terms of, say, if somebody wants to move out of the cartel. And they could actually kill him and so on and so forth. So whether you call the drug mafia or when you talk about the Italian mafia or whatever be the thing that you're really talking about, I think most of you would have actually read The Godfather, which really gives you a lot of insights into it and the principles of it. And I think if any one of you has to read a novel which has a huge implication on business, then it has to be Godfather. And I think from my point of view, the best statement in Godfather actually comes from one statement, and which has a huge implication for business. And it says, revenge is a dish best served cold. It has a huge implication for business. It has a huge implication for the general life itself. But moving ahead of this, when you talk about cartels, which is the most effective cartel that is actually operating in this country? In India. So we are really talking about India here. What do you think is the most effective cartel that operates out of India? And which has led to a huge level of underperformance of that particular industry, I would say. Because if you really look at it, cartels would really take you towards underperformance. In fact, cartels are very dangerous from an economic point of view, because what you're really trying to do is that you're really trying to push the underperformance. Or in case, say, if you're talking about a manufacturing firm, that your cost of manufacturing could be high, but then you're really trying to push it to the consumer, or the consumers are actually paying for it. So consumers burns his fingers. So what do you think is the most effective or the underperforming industry in India, and which is actually a cartel? Any ideas? One of them you could actually say is bureaucracy. Bureaucracy, yes, of course, if you really look at it, most of the IAS officers or whatever, they would typically not really want to work very hard. In fact, Diwakar actually made a statement called politics. Certainly politics is one of them, wherein all these guys are colluding together and they're not really performing. In fact, if you really look at it, there could be a very immediate example that you could actually talk about from the idea of politics is, why do you think we do not want Bihar to progress? Because the moment Bihar progresses, people will start thinking, and people will start thinking, so then there are certain political parties who would actually lose favor and so on and so forth. So progress could be a very dangerous thing that could happen. Bureaucracy, yes, they actually underperform. They do not even open themselves to scrutiny in terms of what has been their performance. In fact, I do not know how many of you actually saw this, but then the Prime Minister has actually said that ministries and bureaucrats should actually, be assessed in terms of their performance. But now, if you really look at it, this is a very huge step in a country like India, wherein these people have never got assessed. We have never been in a situation wherein somebody like your elected representatives have actually been assessed by some way or the other. There is no way that you could actually throw them out of the system. In fact, if you really talk about the corporate system, like CEO could actually be chucked out, but if he has not performed. But then you will not be in a position to chuck out a person, say your elected leader. So there is a huge underperformance issue, and we've actually been able, or these people have been able to cage themselves from any kind of negatives that could actually flow from the market. Yeah, there is another one which you say is black market or parallel economy. Yes, there is a certain level of collusion that happens here in terms of like people do not declare or whatever. In fact, there's something very interesting that happens in a community called the Bania community. What happens in the Bania community is that they would, whether we like it or not, they are hugely they hugely operate in a black market thing, or what do you call as number do ka dhanda karte rehte hain. So there is a huge thing that happens there, and but then they have a very great sets of principles there, and the great set of principle there is that okay, now if there is a person within the community who's actually taken money on loan from somebody called X within the same community, it's not something which is written on paper, but then still they would actually take care of their contracts or whatever, and in case if that person is really going to act smart, he could actually be moved out of the community itself. So there are certain sets of principles that can actually get followed, but then if you really talk about okay, now Siddharth from Lucknow has made a very interesting statement. Let me just take Siddharth on air. Yes, Siddharth.
We were speaking of bureaucracy, so maybe the judicial system, the judiciary is itself almost a cartel, as we could see in the recent asset declaration case, that the judges were colluding among themselves to not make this a rule that they declare their assets. They wanted to be away from the public eye.
Okay.
But thanks to some judges down south, it seems that the cartel may not be. I mean, this cartel may fade away.
Okay, exactly. So if you really look at it, I think I absolutely agree with you. So you made a public statement, Siddharth, and I think you are absolutely going to be fighting against the cartel. They would actually, we should put it on something like YouTube now. And so now now this is what we call as contempt of court. So anyway, but then that's joke part of it. But what I'm saying is like, yes, what you're saying is absolutely correct. But little deeper, like what do you think is the most non-performing asset within the country? And all of us believe in it, and it's a hugely bloody underperforming asset, and they form the biggest cartel in the country from my point of view. You should be able to answer
per
this.
Se, or
excuse me?
Is it an industry per se, or something like bureaucracy or something like that?
You could. It has to be part of the industry, anyways.
Okay.
Excuse me. Yes, go ahead.
Why did you say I should be able to answer that? Was that a hint?
Yes, there is a hint in this.
Something related to the education system with the public schools?
Why do you say public schools? You think you're underperforming? You're from a school, right?
No, what I meant was government-run schools, because normally these schools in villages and the small cities, the government schools, these there's just a thought that could be a collusion in terms of that these people don't work, and that the principals, the teachers of government school, they don't really work, but they still get paid. And
to an extent, yes. So what you're saying is like all these teachers underperform. They don't go to schools. They do not actually take the sessions or whatever. And yes, to an extent, right. But then there is another one. In fact, I think Pitabir. Let me go to Pitabir Raman. He has actually made a interesting thing here. Yes.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Loud? Yeah, I think it's more generalistic, but it could...
Pitabir Raman, could you be a little louder?
That could be any... Hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes.
Loud? Okay, what I was trying to say is... Okay. Yeah, any labor union for that matter could be underperforming, and they are into cartelization. I think we got so many unions around, be it pilots who are under unionized cartels, or it could be student unions for that matter. So at all point of time in Indian context, I think be it a school, be it a colleges, be it doctors or hospitals and things like that, I think there's a decent cartelization formed among the individual segment of industry. And I think most of the unions tend not to drive economies for which they are basically set. It could be a lorry union, for as simple as a lorry union where they want to go out for a strike for days and kill the transportation segment for that matter, which did take place about the same time last year, I guess, and I think it was quite a huge, more than 10-12 days. So that did hit the entire state of Maharashtra and the south per se. So I guess it is more so from the point of labor unions, which could be mostly underperforming, under evaluated, under treated. So probably it's a combination of all the three, and that is more so also. If you were to move up, it is more of a trade unions per se.
Okay, very interesting.
That is where I was coming from.
Very interesting thing, Pattabhi Raman. In fact, yes, from my point of view, to a great extent, labor unions are a great study in cartelization or collusion, because all of them, all the players within the industry would underperform. In fact, if you really look at the recent driver strike that happened within the country, the pilot strike, because suddenly I've got confused. Yeah, because pilots are drivers or pilots are executives now, because I'm a little confused, because the way they behaved like drivers. So from now I've started categorizing pilots as drivers, highly paid drivers, because they're actually driving an expensive piece of machinery. So that is how they actually get paid. In fact, I've just written a piece which is getting published in Business World, where I'm saying how pilots are drivers now, and how there is an economic reason for calling them drivers and the way they behave. But then that's a different thing. But then if you really look at it, it's actually an effect in cartelization, wherein all these underperforming people are really trying to mess up a company or whatever. So workforce could actually come together to really create a cartelization. But the example that I'm really trying to touch is something which, or an organization which has been in the news in the last 2 months to a great extent, and they are a great study in cartelization, because most of the people who work there hugely underperform. They make hardly any contribution, and they are actually creating a cartel. Could you just name that? You're there. You've actually answered.
Airlines, is the airlines.
Airlines, beyond airlines.
Air India.
Beyond airlines. Because I said, like, pilots and everybody, yes, they did that, but then there is a cartel which is much more bigger than that. And they've actually been underperforming for the last, from my point of view, since independence.
Again, it boils down to bureaucrats. If it is
no, there's one bigger than that actually. In fact, if you really look at it, before I actually come to that answer, there are other sets of people who are actually create cartels, or there is an effective way of creating a cartel, is something like creating having alumni associations. You know what are alumni associations? Like trade unions, alumni associations are cartelization in action. Because alumni associations would actually, or alumni would define what kind of campuses would you actually go to, what kind of people will you hire, and if you say belong to a certain institution, you have a huge chance of really getting hired. So if you really look at it, why people want to get attached to Harvard? Harvard is a great club. There is no doubt about it. So they actually want to be part of a club. Similarly, if you really talk about something like trade associations or industry associations, they are actually another one wherein say somebody like CII, FICCI, ASSOCHAM or whatever. They are trade bodies wherein people come together and they want to actually, and they form a cartel to a certain extent because they are able to influence the government policy and so on and so forth. But another one, what do you think is the most underperforming industry in the world?
I don't know whether it's underperforming, but they have definitely a strong knowledge base. Are we talking about the faculty of IIT and IIMs?
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, this is where I would actually come to. In fact, for this whole idea of cartelization, if you really look at it, I wrote a first piece on this about 6 years back, wherein I actually said that how faculty underperforms in this country. In fact, if you really look at the whole idea of IIT and IIM faculty, I think why do you think Harvard is Harvard? From my point of view, Harvard is Harvard, or MIT is known as MIT, or Sloan, or you say Stanford, or whatever be the great places in the world. The great institutions are known in the world because of the knowledge contribution that they actually make. In fact, as I told you, like the other day when we were really talking about, I think about clusters and the competitiveness issue, between New York and Boston, it's just a 200-mile distance, and there are close to about 113 living Nobel laureates living in that region. And when I talk about in a country like India, we do not have a single living Nobel laureate living in India. In fact, barring one person, a lot of people would say he's an Indian. I still have a doubt on that, because I'm talking from a person who's worked in India and got a Nobel from India. I'm not really talking about a person like Amartya Sen or whatever. In fact, so if you really look at it, people have not really performed here. In fact, if you really talk about the faculty of the of IIMs, or the IITs, if you really look at this IIMs or IITs and things, they hardly publish. In fact, if you really look at it, all the IITs and IIMs are not known because of the faculty or the contribution that they've made to knowledge, but they are actually known for what do you call as great students who are actually getting in. In fact, on an average, if you really look at the IIM faculty or the IIT faculty, I did a study for the Government of India, wherein we were really trying to see what are the number of publications that happen in the Ivy League college. In fact, if you really talk about the Ivy League colleges or the top 10 colleges within the United States, the average number of publications, including newspaper insertions and everything, are close to 11 in the United States, and that is close to 0.41 in India. That means what you call as la creme de la creme in this country, or the faculty that have actually been underperforming. In fact, if you really look at this whole idea of what do you call faculty right now, wherein they're saying that the salary should be increased, why should it actually be increased? Because I am fundamentally against the idea that the faculty salary should be increased now. Because if they were performing, then they could actually get into patenting regimes, and if they get into patenting regimes, they can actually make money out of it. The IIT system is very, very flexible. It allows the faculty to make as much money as it wants to. But then if you are not performing, so then why should you actually get monetary gains? In the United States, professors have been able to create companies. And in the Indian context, you've never been able to do that. You can't even name one single professor who has done wonders from the IITs or the IIM system. So from my point of view, it's a cartel which is hugely underperforming. So now they would not really let them open to scrutiny of performance. If the government wants to say, how are you performing, they'll actually pounce on the government. And if you actually talk about anybody from the outside system, ask them the question, they say, oh no, we are actually a teaching institution. So in fact, if you really go by this logic of teaching institutions and whatever, you know what is the number of average number of hours an IIM faculty would teach in a year? Make a guess, any one of you please, like anybody who has a answer to this. How many average number of hours a person would be studying? Oh sorry, a person would be contributing in terms of teaching? Yes, Siddharth. You asked me a question. Did I give this talk in Chandigarh?
Did you? Because I remember this discussion, and I recollect, I think it was you, and I attended some program organized by FICCI or SHM or something like a CII, I think. There's a summit on education, and I heard such a paper being, not a paper, such a presentation being done there.
In fact, there is nobody else in the country who made this statement. Except me. I started doing this about 5 years.
Then it has to be you. It has to be you. I don't remember. But now it seems that it was you there. So,
absolutely, I did make that. I can't guess. Sure. Okay. Now, what do you think?
At Chandigarh.
How many hours do you think an IIM faculty teaches? Make a guess. Any one of you. If you could just tell me, like how many, less than 100 hours per year?
4 or 5 hours a week.
4 or 5 hours, 4 hours per day. Okay, now I need to talk to Rajiv on this. Rajiv has given me some very interesting figures. So in fact, I have figures like, Rajiv, I must tell you, Suresh has told me that there are 100 hours per year, up to 100 hours per year. Murli has told me that it is 500 hours per year. You're telling me it is 4 hours per day, that means 1200 hours a year, multiplied by 300. Is it same for IITs and IIMs, or what is your take on this?
Well, I think at least IIT professors must be teaching at least 4 hours a day. Teaching whether it's part of a regular
Sir, if you want, you can change the headphones, sir.
and or some of the tutorials that it takes for the students.
Could you hold on for a second, Rajiv? Let me just change my headphone. There seems to be a problem here. Just a second. Yes, Rajiv.
No, 4 hours per day.
4 hours per day.
I was just doing. I was thinking at least 4 hours per day would be an IIT teacher's teaching contribution. On an average, and I think institutes don't work more than 200 days, right? Vacation days.
800 hours.
So we can do the math. So 800 hours.
800 hours.
IIMs, I would say, yeah, IIMs would be, I don't know, maybe more actually, because the number of professors are less. I don't know, but more than 4 hours of teaching would be tough.
Okay.
There could be a lot more work that they are supposed to do. Now, I have no basis to know what it is.
Okay. Okay. Now I need to actually give this something very interesting. You know, this is what people believe. You know, on an average, a faculty in any of the IIM systems will not teach for more than 90 hours a year. So now that's a shocking figure for you. Their workload is supposed to be equivalent to 6 courses a year. That means 180 hours of teaching. 6 courses a year would mean that it is equivalent to 180 hours. You could publish, you could do your consulting, or whatever. So that is how the equivalence has actually been created. These are the biggest bunch of underperformers who do not deserve to get paid, and they're all getting paid for doing nothing. In fact, on the patenting figures, I think this is one huge thing. You know, like in the year 2007, between 1997 till 2005, how many patents did MIT do? MIT did 683 patents in that intervening period, in that period of about 8 years. How many patents do you think IIT professors did? Rajiv, this question is for you. You're from the industry, and one industry which talks about a lot of innovation and everything. I can't really hear you now.
I don't think IIT professors would have even gone up to 2, you know. They wouldn't have definitely not been 3-digit. 20, 30 patents.
20, 30 patents? Rajiv, you're living in a different world, you know. Very interestingly, MIT did 683 patents, India did 363 patents. India as a country did 363 patents. Out of the educational institution, 1 patent actually happened, and that was from Indian Institute of Sciences. None of the IITs made any of the patents or patent applications. And in fact, so that is the shocking figure for us. So now this actually tells you the huge level or a huge story of underperformance. In fact, you know, like there was this whole huge debate that actually happened in 2003, wherein Murli Manohar Joshi used to be the education minister, and it was about the fees hike thing that actually was being talked about. In fact, if you really look at it, the issue at that time was not fee hike, it was actually about performance of faculty, because for the first time the ministry was saying that how do you gauge the performance of faculty? So if you really look at this, there is a huge issue of underperformance within the faculty community. And in fact, if you really look at it, how do you enter that faculty community? You actually have to be a PhD, fair enough. I'll not really negate the idea of a PhD here. But the next one is going to be like whether you're related to somebody or not. So that is where this whole huge idea of cartelization happens. In fact, another industry which sees this whole huge level of cartelization is called the film industry. very few people who are actually from the outside the system, they would come in and they actually change the rules of the game, like Shah Rukh Khan or whatever. But typically, all of them are going to be sons and daughters of the previous sets of actors and actresses. So when I was really trying to talk about cartelization here, it was about like how everybody underperforms and how this underperformance can actually lead to a huge level of national waste. So we have to find ways to effectively curb cartelization. And in fact, in this case, the government of India should actually look at curbing the cartelization effect in the education system. Yes, you had a question, Rajiv?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Point taken, and definitely these statistics about the professors in our country are now tremendously depressing. But
and they're part of my community.
Yeah, sure. So that's A, bold, and B, gives us a lot of cocktail conversations. Anyway, coming back to, you are saying constantly that cartelization is bad. Fair enough, as a word bad, but if we see just from a DBS perspective, or
yes.
even if we see from what Kingfisher and Jet did, right, I think, they are protecting an industry. To a certain extent. We can argue morally, we can argue from a legal standpoint, there's free market, there should be a free market, no, that's fine. But if two dominant players who made the investment in industry of providing a good service, they come together and try and maintain a price band, whether it is, should diamonds be accessible to all, or should diamonds be accessible to few, that's the way the product has been developed by this industry.
Mm-hmm.
Why should we say it's bad in all cases?
Okay.
Why should we take a brush and say cartelization or collusion is bad?
Great. I think what you're coming to, Rajiv, is extremely important actually. This is where I want to lead the discussion as well. If you really look at it, when I say cartelization is bad, I think cartelization is bad, very, very simply put, when it actually makes the consumer suffer. So if the consumer is actually suffering, then that means there is a negative effect of cartelization, because at the end of the day, he's the reason for your existence and everything. And in case when I said like the existence of the industry or whatever, I think we have to dig deeper into understanding why there is a huge level of underperformance at the level of Jet and say Kingfisher. Is it because of the regulatory thing? If that is happening because of regulatory frameworks, then I would say what they're saying is right, because then they have to survive and everything. But then if you really look at a case of De Beers is an important example wherein nobody at any given point in time has really got down on them very, very heavily. What do you think is the reason for it? In fact, if you really look at the story, this actually falls into place on the idea of how cartels could actually operate, what should be categorized as a cartel, and so on and so forth. In fact, if you really look at De Beers, who's making money in this industry? Who's making money in the diamond industry? And why do you think everybody? And who's making the maximum amount of money in this industry then?
I should refer to the data points, but I guess it's the...
it's not De Beers at least.
De Beers.
Yes.
De Beers is not. It's De Beers, yeah. It's not De Beers, clearly. In fact, they are helping others make some money.
Mm-hmm.
One is definitely the retailers.
Exactly.
I think that's even given as a data point. And the other is the mines and the other people who are producing these diamonds, and which are actually being able to be sold to De Beers mostly, and maybe one or two more Antwerp people at a fairly controlled price.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'll come back to the...
So if you really look at this whole thing, when you actually talk about cartelization here, when you talk about this industry here, the money is actually being made by the retailer. 80% of the money that is being made in this industry is being made by the retailer. And De Beers does really make something like 20% of the money, but it's about, they also control the output and so on and so forth, but they've never really hurt the consumer as well. Now, if you really look at this whole idea of like cartelization and having a negative impact on consumer, there are two different sets of people that De Beers actually has an impact on. One is the customer, that is the retailer, and there is an end consumer like you and me who buys diamonds. In this case, what is actually happening is that in the case of diamonds, both of us are not really suffering. That is a retailer as well as the end user, like you and me. If we actually say that we have to come down very heavily on De Beers, it is going to have a huge impact on the industry per se. It is actually going to kill the value of the diamond, and it is going to kill the value of the industry itself. So if you really look at it, the principle of justice in this case is, or the economic principle is that if you actually find that the consumer choice is actually getting restricted, or it is the consumer who's actually suffering, then you have to find ways to really curb the cartel. In case of De Beers, it was not happening. In fact, if you really look at the whole idea of Microsoft as well, wherein Microsoft, a lot of people have been saying that Microsoft has actually been is a monopoly, and a lot of people say that it controls so much, and you can take it akin to, say, cartelization itself. But then nobody has come down very heavily on Microsoft, at least in the United States, because the base level principle that the consumer sentiments or consumer was not getting hurt in this case. So that is how they've actually been able to survive. So if you really look at this idea of cartelization, it is that if the consumer is not suffering, then that means like the collusionary tactic could actually be you could let it go. But if the consumer suffers, then you have to actually come down very heavily on it. What is the basic level economic principle? Demand and supply, and it is for the benefit of the consumer. If any one of these, if this principle is actually going to get negated on and whatever, then this has to be actually taken care of. So when I actually talked about IITs or IIMs, I think it's the end consumer or the stakeholder who's actually suffering. The government invests money, and a country invests public money into it, and these institutions do not perform. These institutions do not do research. They do not do local level research. In fact, the last significant contribution that any educational institution made in this country was probably in the 1980s. In fact, if you talk about the MDIs of the world or XLRIs of the world, IIMs of the world, they've not been performing at all. How many of us are actually known outside? How many of us are actually respected outside for the faculty that they actually produce? None of us. We've actually been huge bunch of underperformers. We are actually labor class. We should not even be categorized as knowledge workers or whatever. So if you really look at this, cartelization is that we need to actually have, if there is a cartel that gets formed, then there has to be a very swift exemplary punishment if somebody wants to leave the cartel. But as an external agency, if I really have to break a cartel, I would break a cartel when it is actually making a consumer suffer, and you're actually creating a profit level which is supernormal, then you should actually intervene. So this is a very simple base level principle about the idea of cartelization and tacit collusion. So this is what I really wanted to tell you. In fact, if you really look at your De Beers case, if you read more about De Beers, you would find somewhere that there is a simple principle called "thou shall not hurt the consumer." So that is one principle that is always going to be followed in the idea of how cartels are looked at, how antitrust regulations are looked at, or how competition law is actually looked at. So this is one thing that we really wanted to discuss today. The next thing that we are going to do today is the case on Eli Lilly. We'll have a short break of about 10 minutes, and then we'll actually come down to the Eli Lilly case. Exactly 10 minutes, we start at 7:15, and we go to the Eli Lilly case. But one very short caveat, we have to close the session at 8:30 today, and we will quickly do the case. I would want one of you to actually start with the 5 forces analysis. So anybody who would like to do the 5 forces analysis for the case today? Rajiv, you're hiding your face, I can see that.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, we can. Whoever wants to do it, it's okay.
Okay, I'll just do a cold call. So you have.
If we have somebody from the pharma or an allied industry.
Anybody? Do we have a pharma person here? I think. Let me just talk to anybody who's a pharma person. Could you just send me a message here? Okay, let me actually get back to you in about 10 minutes, and let's go ahead with the discussion then, and let's start with the idea of Eli Lilly as a case. Sure, thank you.
Sir, on a count of 3, you will be on. 3, 2, 1.
Hello, hi. Let us start with the thing now. Let us start with our case on Eli Lilly. But before that, I thought I must show this to you. In fact, this is the India City Competitiveness Report that we did, and I hope you've. I will send you a copy of it. It's a report review. If you want to actually pick up a report, you could look at it. And this was a special cover story that actually happened on the city competitiveness thing. So this was issue dated October 5. So just have a look at it. In fact, I'll give you copies of this when you are here for the program. But then a fairly interesting sets of data. We've ranked Bombay as number 1 and we have ranked Delhi as number 2. And to surprise of a lot of people, we've ranked Calcutta as number 5. And of course, if I had my way and if I tried a lot, but I was not able to do it, I would have wanted to rank Gurgaon as 37 out of my in my index out of 37 cities that we studied, but we actually did Gurgaon as number 11. So sad but true, and so that's what it is, and we will discuss more of this when we actually come back. But coming to the Eli Lilly case, we'll start with Suresh, who's going to present us with his 5 forces. Suresh belongs to the pharmaceutical industry, so we'll start with Suresh today. He'll actually do his 5 forces, and he'll go through, take us through the complete idea of what this case is. In fact, if you really look at the challenges, like how the industry is changing, what are the challenges the industry faces, and so on and so forth, how things could change in the future. So that's one that we have to really map, and one we have to really look at is there are 3 processes that we are really talking about here. So which one of the processes do you think should be really taken up by Eli Lilly? So these are the few questions that we have to really look at. So Suresh, please go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah, Suresh, please.
Can you hear? Am I audible?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Basically, if you look at the current trends in the pharmaceutical industry, there's a lot of investment happening. I mean, a lot of blockbusters in the top 5 to 10 pharmaceutical industries are coming out of their patent regime. Example, Lipitor from Pfizer. That's a $14 billion drug is losing patent in 2010, 2011. So similarly, and at the same time, a lot of there are very few new molecular entities called the NMEs, which come out of the R&D from the pharmaceutical departments, getting approved by the Food and Drug Administration. So if you see, they were around 98 to 98, 2000, there were more than 100 plus new molecular entities being approved by FDA, whereas in 2007, 2008, it has drastically come down to around 23. So there are a lot of molecular fallouts, what the industry terminology is, which means the quality of basic research happening in the pharmaceutical R&D is not up to the standards.
Okay.
So that is an industry challenge. And second thing, the cost of drug development has shot up to close to 1 billion. So for a molecule to come out of research, to undergo clinical trials, and to come into sales and marketing, the duration has shot up 0.1. It was average of 6 to 8 years, that has shot up to 10 to 12 years per drug. And the cost, which was around $500 million per drug, is now takes 1 billion at least, right, for the entire life cycle of from the research till the marketing stage.
Okay.
So there's a lot of demand. At the same time, there are new kinds of diseases across different therapeutic areas. So there's a lot of new emerging diseases, like we saw the H1N1, where there was no research, any medicine yet, and that's when Novartis has come out with the vaccine. So the pressures are very heavy on the pharmaceutical industries. The cost of drugs is increasing. The cost per drug to be manufactured is shot up. The timeline of conducting a trial is shot up. So these are all the pressures that pharmaceutical industries are facing today. And that's when we are seeing that at every stage of at every process and every stage of what a drug undergoes, right, starting from the research, manufacturing, then analysis and approvals, identify those areas that can be optimized and improved, break down all the processes in every step of clinical research and development. There's a lot of emphasis laid on that today. So today all the pharmaceutical companies are asking their suppliers or vendors to provide innovative process improvements and enhancements in each and every stage of the drug discovery, development and manufacturing.
Okay. So what you're saying is, like, there are a couple of things, or three things which are very, very important, right? One is that there is slower rate of innovation. Yes, all the people across the board are being asked to focus on process improvement. Yes, and then of course the cost of innovation in this case, or what do you call as molecular discovery, has actually shot up, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and it has shot up to about $1 billion, right? And it is actually,
per compound, yeah.
And of course there is another thing that you said, it's the timelines that we were really talking about. It has
to market.
Exactly. So typically you were saying that it used to be something like 6 to 8 years. It has actually gone to 10 to 12 years, right? And then of course this.
Yes,
what do you think? What is going to be the implication of this idea on the pharmaceutical industry? What do you think is the implication here?
See here again, coming to the specific to the timeline. This is when the sooner a drug is launched into the market, the more market share they capture in terms of that product. And if there are any delays in that, that is where the generics competition is coming, and then they are dominating. They are coming out with generic versions and dominating the market. So timeline is very critical, and there are proven statistical data that even a day's delay can lead to a loss of $250 million for a particular drug. So
very, very interesting, Suresh. So what you're saying is that this is related to something called as the patent expiration that you're really talking about, right?
Yes.
Can I relate these two things? Because what you're saying is, because say what is going to happen is, if you're not able to really get your drug into the market, then you're really going to lose money, because your patent is going to expire over a period of time, and then of course generic competition is actually going to come in.
Yeah.
So that means this is where you're saying threat of generics.
Threat of generics, yes.
Okay, great. Anything else that you feel is changing within the industry?
And another thing is the consolidation, mergers and acquisitions in the top 10 global pharmaceutical players is also determining the market share. For example, Pfizer and Wyeth acquisition of Wyeth by Pfizer, and retaining though Pfizer pipeline of Pfizer is very poor. They are still a very cash-rich company, and they are still investing billions of dollars into R&D.
Okay.
So there are acquisition of products and companies happening to keep ahead, be ahead in the game and capture the market share.
Okay, and if I extend this, so what you're saying is there are large players, they're becoming, can I say they're becoming global players over a period of time as well? The pharmaceutical industry, they're already global, right?
They're already global. Generic companies are becoming global. That's the new trend that has started.
Okay. So what we're saying is, like, the drug discovery companies were typically global long time back, but now there is going to be a huge threat that the generics are also going to becoming more and more global. So you have companies like Teva, which etc., and you have Reliance, which is actually looking at coming into the sector now. And so that's what you're really talking about. Okay. So these are a few interesting facts, but then if I really go deeper into this, Suresh, what do you think compels a company to really look at manufacturing as a strategy? Why do you think we really need to talk about manufacturing in this case?
Manufacturing is a very significant component of the entire product life cycle, and this incurs a lot of I would say in terms of investment, setting up the plant, having the right infrastructure, getting the right ingredients at optimal costs, getting the right talent in the manufacturing process, the processes used, any innovations in the processes, the quality of the output, the logistics involved, the supply chain, etc. So there's too many dependencies and I would say there are too many parameters that are involved in getting the quality product out of the manufacturing plant at the right time or on the right time. So the manufacturing process itself is a very complicated and a complex and a challenging process in the entire drug development process.
Okay. And if we just look at this, so one, you're saying it's a challenging and important task. But if I really ask you another question, why do you think it becomes important for a company like Eli Lilly? How do you think these two things can be connected between drug discovery and how drug discovery and manufacturing could be connected here? And what do you think is the implication here? What is the strategic implication for this?
In case of Eli Lilly, they had two blockbusters. One is the Prozac for anti-depression, and Humulin, the human insulin. These were once upon a time in the 80s and 90s were the top-selling drugs for Eli Lilly. To meet the demands of catering these drugs to the market, Eli Lilly had to gear up to kind of get the production facilities prepared to kind of cater to these demands, to manufacture to such large volumes, and that's when manufacturing becomes a very key important parameter for a pharmaceutical company. On three parameters, one thing is to ensure that there is continuity in the current products that they are manufacturing. The second thing is to enable there is enough investment happening in the future drugs that they plan to launch and market. So that's where manufacturing becomes a very key component for a pharmaceutical company.
Great. Okay, so moving ahead of this, so there is huge challenge that is happening. The environment is changing. Manufacturing is going to be important because you have to really ramp up your capacities extremely fast after the drug discovery process, because the timelines in which you can actually make money are going to be shortened and so on and so forth. But now moving to the next thing, and that is your industry structure. What is the industry structure here? What are the critical things within the industry? What about those 5 forces thing? Could you just tell me, throw a little light on the industry per se?
See, the critical component is where the active ingredients are to be prepared, which is the initial stage of the manufacturing. So there is significant costs involved in the initial stages of manufacturing for every pharmaceutical industry, and that is where Eli Lilly had to focus on as to how they would strengthen their initial set of processes for the active ingredients. And then coming to the industry part of active ingredients, today many of these top global pharmaceutical companies have offshored their manufacturing processes to China. So that's the from the 5 forces point of view, that is where the I would say the trend is happening, where to reduce the cost of manufacturing, they have identified key areas in the manufacturing that can be offshored or outsourced.
Okay.
To India and China. To India.
Great. So I'll come back to you, Suresh, and I'll certainly get back to you during the session. So give me some time. Let me just talk to a couple of more people who've raised their hands. So Rajiv was the first one. So yes, Rajiv. Let's go through a step-by-step 5 forces here, and let's see what is the implication for business here, which is going to be fairly important.
Sure.
Yeah.
Being non-pharma, so the analysis is going to be slightly general, but we'll use the framework. So and see and then
Please go ahead.
Comments from both you and Suresh. Okay. So 5 forces. I'll start with the buyer.
Let's start with competition, actually.
Okay, let's start with competition. So competition, number of players, I would say is few, but competition is intense.
Okay.
So the rivalry, competitive rivalry in the industry is intense. You want me to elaborate, or should I?
Yeah, please go ahead. Why do you say it is intense competition?
Well, it's a highly profitable industry.
Okay.
Everybody knows the path to profit. It's superior R&D. It's superior, superior patenting. It's faster time to market, etc. Actually, the industry is also divided into 2 big halves. One is the first phase, which is the patented phase, and then it's the generic phase.
Yes.
So in both the cases, on 2 different dimensions, there is intense competition. I don't know much about the profitability of the generic industry, but we all know from little bit of data in the case and even otherwise that the pharma industry is highly profitable, at least in the patented stage. So whoever gets there first and fastest, being profitable, this is the case. We also
great, Rajiv. Just here itself. Yeah. So when you say at the generic stage, you're competing on price, right? That is why.
Yes.
This is what is going to happen.
Cost.
So that is what is going to happen. And the next thing is when you're talking about say innovation, and you're saying that profitability is very high. Can you connect these 2 dots here? Like what is happening within the industry? Is the competition intense, or competition is a little different in this case? Because had competition been intense, then the profitability of the industry should be a little lower, from my point of view. Or the whole industry is getting structured in such a way that the profitability is a shade high. Well, what is actually happening?
No, the profitability remains high. I mean, even though there is intense rivalry, but the profitability yet remains high because of the patenting regime or the patenting protection. Which, I mean, as Suresh mentioned, the cost of developing the new molecule or the new drug is about $1 billion. And obviously, based on the success rates, etc., the regime has to provide that when companies incur such huge cost in developing new molecules, they get a period of protection where they can enjoy superior profits. Which means during that point of time, like Prozac can only be manufactured by Eli Lilly until the patent expires, and therefore Eli Lilly would be charging a handsome price for it. So, even though there is competition, due to the patenting protection, there is a period of super profitability. That's my view.
Okay, Rajiv, what you're saying is extremely correct. But then, if you really look at it, there is only one Lipitor, there is one Prozac, or there is one Viagra. So what does this mean? Like there is no competition in this space. Or if you really talk about the pharmaceutical industry, if you really look at the case and the way this thing is structured, either you are a diabetic care company or you could be cardiac care company or whatever. So if you really look at it, there seems to be a very interesting cycle or the way industry is getting segmented here. What is probably happening is that either you're focusing on cardiac care or molecular discovery in cardiac care or whatever, or you're really focusing on say diabetes, or you're really focusing on something like say kidney disease or whatever. So you're actually really looking at segmental competition. Even though it looks prima facie that the competition is intense, but at the innovation stage, the competition is not so intense that the way we feel, because the industry is getting into various sets of brackets. Because the industry is either it's a segmental industry somewhere. You're either talking, yes, exactly. What I wanted to say, a segmental is specialization. So you have say Novartis. Novartis actually operates in a certain area. You actually talk about Pfizer, it operates in a certain area. You talk about Sandoz or whatever, they actually operate in a separate area. You talk about any company, they actually have very specific areas that they're really focusing on. And most of the companies do not really barge into or really move into each other's segments. So if you really look at it, the competition seems to be very intense, but I think what's happening is the whole idea of the pharmaceutical industry is that since you're spending so much of money in terms of, say, drug discovery, you're spending $1 billion, it becomes very important to really recover that money in a very short span. There are just two ways. If your drug fails, assuming that your drug fails, it has to be withdrawn from the market or whatever, you're anyways dead. You're going to actually lose that kind of money. Or else you have to find a way that if your drug is successful, you need to recover that $1 billion very, very quickly. And you have to make money after that, because suddenly there is going to be somebody called generic who's actually going to come in. Initially, the period used to be something like close to about 10 years. Now that period has got 12 years. It has got reduced to something like 8 years now. So this is what is happening. So, okay, moving next. If you were talking about buyers here. What about buyers?
Yeah, my view on buyers is eventually the buyer, even though it's a final consumer with a health or a disease or whatever issue, but it's actually the doctors and the hospitals. So when I look at the final patient, his power is very weak.
Exactly.
He really cannot. He will typically buy what his doctor or his hospital prescribes. And so I would classify the buyers, even though the size is huge, every demographic suggests we'll need more and more pharmaceutical products, but their power as such is weak.
Okay.
Which means companies, if they have a good product, they should be able to price it well. That's one point. Obviously, again, this industry, since it's so heavily divided, the minute we go from patented to generic, in the generic side, eventually on the OTC side, the buyer power is high, but I think in the Eli Lilly case, we would probably stick to the former, at least in the case of buyer segment, and I'll say buyer is weak. Coming to suppliers, and here I think it's interesting that the entire process, as written in the case of creating a pharmaceutical product, also needs to give out the description and analysis of the manufacturing process. So the supplier space here is probably all the compounds, the materials, the manufacturing process, the manufacturing technology, etc. And I would say in this case the suppliers would be few, and therefore the switching costs moving for Eli Lilly or for this industry, the supplier power would be high. That's my view.
Could you give the could you give the explanation again? Why do you think that supplier power is going to be very high?
Let me first, I have to be clear about who I'm classifying as a supplier.
Yeah.
Who's a supplier to Eli Lilly, and or who's a supplier to pharmaceutical companies which are in the drug discovery and the drug business. So, according to me, supplier is a set of companies making the raw materials.
Okay.
But I would also, since we can always put a line of division between manufacturing, R&D, and marketing, then I would say manufacturing is also a supplier to this industry, or at least in my mind. So, I could be, Rajiv Enterprises could be a supplier of a manufacturing process entity. I don't do R&D, I don't do marketing. That's what Eli Lilly does. But I have the set of techniques or the processes to make these synthesis, chemical reactions, make these compounds that Eli Lilly tells me. So if I'm Eli Lilly's captive manufacturer, then Eli Lilly's cost of switching from me is going to be very high.
Oh, okay. Now I get your point. So what you're saying is...
so I need to.
Fair. So what you're saying is a person who's a process manufacturer or a process owner here. Manufacturing process owner?
All I must apply because as it appears, at least of the time the case has been written, 1991, most of these pharma companies had made their own huge investments in this big bulk manufacturing facility.
Yes.
Very specialized, etc. So in that case, this is an in-house process. But even if I look at it as an in-house supplier of the manufacturing and the raw materials, probably the supply power is high. That's my view. I'm happy to.
I think what you're saying is that the importance of this is very, very high, right?
Correct.
And probably this could be the reason for your failure or success here. This is what you're really trying to tell me.
Not for the R&D, but yes, for everything else, because the cost of, those, somewhere a mention of 40 million is what it takes to set up a line, depreciate it over 10 years, etc. So, this is high. This is
got a point.
And high stuff. So, companies need to focus in this industry. Companies would be focusing on this.
So, what you're saying is input, yes, is important. So, then this is the processing and, of course, the output thing. So, this process becomes extremely important. I agree with you on this, Rajiv. In fact,
because the success or failure of the drug, right from the trials as well as in the approval process, so the quality of the material, compound, everything. So it's very important. Very important.
But going back to your previous thing, so you said there were two category of buyers, right? Patients and doctors. I've actually mentioned a third one here called the government. How do you think government could be an important buyer here?
No, in fact, government is an important player. So in the buyer side, in case the government has regulations that they will not price a certain drug a certain way. So government could, is a joker in the pack here. So government can have rules which will then make the buyer power extremely high. Government can set prices.
Exactly. So like government becomes very important here. In terms of like if in the Indian context, the government could say that this is a life-saving drug, and suddenly the price of your drug has to be extremely low, and so on and so forth. So that's how you're really coming to. Okay. What about substitution? What about threat of new entrants and substitute for products? Threat of new entrants, of course.
New entrants low, substitutes nil.
Exactly. So if you really look at it.
Do not use, yeah.
So if you really look at this industry, this is a very interesting industry now, wherein what is important is like there is a segmental competition that actually happens. You have to very quickly recover your recover your investments in R&D. So manufacturing becomes very, very important for you. And now this leads us to a very interesting view on manufacturing. How do you think companies look at manufacturing? Rajiv, I have this question for you, and then I actually move to somebody else. Since you come from the manufacturing sector, how do you think companies look at manufacturing today?
I think companies don't want to look at manufacturing today.
Okay.
But for certain companies, or for certain types of businesses, manufacturing can be important and a very important part of strategy.
Okay.
But in general, I don't know how to frame my answer, but in general, companies or enterprises want to either serve at the customer end of the market or serve at the services end of the market, and manufacturing is probably a commoditized vertical that could be created out of a set of equipment, set processes. So I think manufacturing is not considered. I think it's not considered competitive strategy anymore, if I can say that.
Okay.
Too big a statement, but I think manufacturing as a competitive strategy is not I don't think that's the way most enterprises believe that manufacturing could give them a competitive strategy or a competitive edge.
Can I
If
just
available, it can be done. Yeah.
Can we just go to a very basic statement that from where we start, like?
Okay. Yeah, if we go with this statement, your value statement or profit statement, then manufacturing is important because manufacturing comes to the costs end of it.
Yes. And so, do you still feel that this is not important? Even if you're outsourcing, what is the basic reason?
I think it is very important, but in
companies are not taking it that way.
Companies, yeah, they think it's a commodity, so they're just looking at the face value of price, etc. Price is the most important, but I'm a little bit caught in my own way. Manufacturing is very important. Without that, you don't have a product. But for example, let's say if one argues, I will just take two industries. One is the pharma industry, which is in front of us. The second is an auto industry where I come from right now. So in the case of pharma industries, companies could argue, these specialized segmented pharma companies into various molecular research could argue that, why are we spending our time in looking at that phase 2 and phase 3 of manufacturing? All we need to have is great R&D, great clinical trials, great approval process, great marketing. Why are we even looking at manufacturing? There are these, people who will do that, will define the molecules, blah, blah, blah. They could do it that way.
And then how do you recover your money?
No, of course, you have to.
So what you're saying is that you're going to actually charge more rather than reduce the cost. And then you're actually going to shrink the market because the market is going to be, at least there is some kind of a price elasticity that is going to happen, right?
True. I mean, until the process of manufacturing of these drugs or pharma products is so specialized that, the guy who's making it for Pfizer versus the guy who's making it for Eli Lilly. I mean, Eli Lilly's manufacturing process, how they run it is really unique to their company. But the whole process of taking few chemical compounds and under a set of controlled processes creating the molecule that is needed, the way Eli Lilly would do it technically would be the same as a Novartis or a Johnson or a Pfizer or an AstraZeneca would do.
No, I think I need to actually go to Suresh on this and see whether what you're saying is correct or not. Yes, Suresh.
Yeah.
Importance of manufacturing. So, like, what Rajiv was saying here was that there could be hardly any difference between the manufacturing processes of different companies, right? So, what's your take on this?
See, that's the reason, because there aren't much of differences in the manufacturing processes. Because for most of the pharmaceutical companies in the US or any of the top pharma we are talking, the suppliers, the active ingredients, the necessary infrastructure, more or less would be the same.
Okay.
And there would be only the drug specific materials that will make the difference. The other thing is, and that's the reason we see that today that's the bulk of the work of the manufacturing, pharma manufacturing has been contracted or outsourced because of the homogeneity in the entire process. And wherever there are core activities and niche skills required, which is the core R&D, and the sales and the marketing is what is retained in-house within the pharmaceutical company. So if we look at the entire value chain of the pharma drug discovery and development, it starts with the basic research which is kept in-house, then which is the drug discovery, which is partly done in-house and partly outsourced, and the drug development, we are seeing that that's the chunk of work that is completely getting outsourced. Manufacturing also is getting outsourced, and sales and marketing is kept in-house. So as and when we are moving up the value chain, more and more pharmaceutical companies are outsourcing all these activities, and the today we are also seeing that the vendors or who provide manufacturing, contract manufacturing organizations, what they are called, are probably able to do more superior, give more superior outputs to the pharmaceutical companies than they were manufacturing in-house. And if we talk about today, as a manufacturing process technology in-house, it might not be of a great, I would say it does not require much of an innovation within a pharmaceutical company unless it is for a very blockbuster that is planned. For example, there are a lot of cancer trials and cancer drugs manufacturing that's happening. So the pharmaceutical company will still continue to do such manufacturing in-house to ensure that there would be complete success for a very specialized drug that they are manufacturing.
So what you're trying to tell me, Suresh, is that if you have a specialized drug, you will try to do it in-house. But if you're moving towards a generic thing, or it's not something which is not a super specialty thing, you'll probably try to do it outside.
Yes.
Okay, so that means like a company like Pfizer, who's actually going to come up with, say, someone like Viagra, assuming, and do you think they would have actually outsourced manufacturing, or they would have actually kept it in-house?
See, there are two phases when a drug is manufactured. First thing, it's called the IND, which is the investigational new drug.
Yeah.
Which means Viagra was in-house, still being discovered, and that is when they would do it in-house, the manufacturing, and until the launch of the new drug, which is going to be a blockbuster, it will be done in-house, and after it is launched, the bulk manufacturing of it is being contracted or outsourced to the contract manufacturing organizations.
Okay, so till the time the discovery
they have their outsourcing strategy in the manufacturing and development is very clear, where there are core and strategic products are retained in-house, core activities and strategic activities, and once it is launched and based on the market research in terms of the product movement, like companies like IMS, they do the product movement and predictions of the products for the next 5 to 10 years. They would take decisions to contract or outsource it.
Okay, great. So what you're saying is it's about like how the product adoption happens, how the diffusion happens, or whatever, and what's the success rates and things, and that is when the manufacturing could be outsourced outside. But till the time it's in the discovery process, it actually happens within the system.
Yes.
Okay, very interesting. But now if you really look at the next step here, what do you think should this company do? From, say, 1991 perspective, you could actually have a different answer. From today's perspective, you could have a different answer. I would like the answer from both perspectives, like process 1, 2, 3 in 1991 and in 2009. What do you think? Process 1, 2 or 3?
Okay. From 1991 perspective, they should. I mean, they have focused heavily on re-engineering and bringing in more process improvements in the entire manufacturing stage, and that is where I think significant investments had to be put in. But if you go into the 2009 onwards, today none of the pharmaceutical companies are adopting those investment steps into their manufacturing process.
Okay. So that's okay, but then what do you think should be the thing? So like in 1991, if I asked you to take a decision, what would have been the decision? Process 1, 2 or 3? Because have you read the case, the full thing? There is
I have. Yes.
There are 3 alternatives here, right? So there is a decision that we are supposed to take. So process 1 is like plan 1, 2 or 3. That was the...
Yes.
So what do you think would be you would have actually followed in 1991? Why? And then what do you think you would have actually followed in 2009 and why?
Yeah. See, it was very critical for Lilly. Like they followed the step one, increase the investment to improve the manufacturing process for successful products that are already in the market. Because even today, Prozac still holds the. I mean, looking back at 1991 and to the name that Prozac carries, even today, they have made a very valid conclusion or a decision in terms of heavily focusing on manufacturing processes, improvement in manufacturing processes for those that are already in the market. And but they have ensured at the same time that whatever pipelines they have had, they also focus, but they commit to those products also as the second step. And at that point of time, Lilly or any other company did not have much choice or options in terms of be it outsourcing or be it subcontracting, etc. So, or it could also be looked at, they did not look at the option of whether there could be suppliers who could provide the same quality but at a lower cost to Lilly.
Okay.
So that could have been another step that Eli Lilly could have looked at. Whether they could have, by not doing these investments on the manufacturing processes, can we get the same quality and output at a lower cost for both their products that are already in the market and what they are currently undergoing research. So that could have been another plan 4, I would say.
Okay.
That they missed the boat. They might have missed the boat then, because the manufacturing, pharmaceutical manufacturing has been in the global scenario for quite since 1980s or even before that. But probably that was what may not have been considered in the 1991 scenario.
Okay.
But if you take the 2009 scenario, we see that Lilly is also one of the companies who are also working with an Indian contract manufacturing company. So they may have taken a very delayed decision in that aspect.
Okay.
The manufacturing process of Eli Lilly, today one of the Indian vendors is working with them.
So if I ask you to really strategize for a pharma company, so as an analyst, what would you suggest? That we should, one, not really worry about manufacturing, we should look at outsourcing the manufacturing part of it? And it
Absolutely.
And you should actually look at drug discovery as a process, right? That is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. In fact, like right here, I would like to really show you something called as the manufacturing model or 4-stage manufacturing model, or what is the role of manufacturing in, say, strategy or whatever. In fact, because if you really look at it, if you are really competing on cost, and especially this could be very important for a generic segment when you're really looking at generic manufacturing and things. So stage 1 would be internally neutral, and when I say internally neutral, it would mean that manufacturing is viewed as providing very little to companies' competitive advantage. Because what is going to happen is that manufacturing is managed in order to say maximize minimize the negative potential on the company, and you just look at the manufacturing as a capacity thing. So this is what is internally neutral. It is not something which is going to take you to a competitive advantage. And when you talk about, say, externally neutral, it would mean you're really looking at manufacturing to really create parity with your competitors, and it is probably something called as an industry practice, that you're just trying to follow the industry practice. Stage 3, or one could be, say, internally supportive, and this would mean that the manufacturing system is designed and managed to provide credible support to companies' business strategy. So this becomes part of the business strategy, because say if your business strategy is, say, in terms of, say, cost or even, say, differentiation, if you're typically talking about cost, then this should support, where manufacturing should support the whole thing. Of course, you could really look at decisions in terms of, say, in-house, or what you were saying is outsourcing the manufacturing thing. I think what has happened is in the last 15-20 years, the world has moved so much ahead that the globalization has taken effect very, very strongly, and you've actually been able to outsource various things. So this principle has actually come. Either it was something which was done in-house, but today you could actually outsource because there are some specialized manufacturing companies who have actually come out. So you could just control the brand and so on and so forth. And the next thing is going to be externally supportive, like, and then manufacturing is looked at as a source of competitive advantage. So if I really look at this, what do you think should companies do? Where do you think companies or pharmaceutical companies are really today? In what stage?
They are in stage 3 and 4.
Okay. So today they are in stage 3 and 4.
Yes, few of them are in 3 and few of them are in 4.
Okay. And probably in the 1990s they were in stage 1 and 2, right?
Yes.
Okay, so now if you really look at it, I think the world has moved so much that in 1991 when we were really looking at this case, in that time you would have actually said, okay, now we need to do something better. So they should have actually looked at stage 3. And at that time the decision could have actually been that we should look at in-house manufacturing, because outsourcing was not something which was very, very big. And you should have actually improved your processes for manufacturing and so on and so forth. And in that case, you could have actually picked up plan 1, 2 or 3. And if you really look at the calculations, then I think what could have actually happened is like plan 2 or 3 could have actually been an obvious choice. But then in today's parlance, what is going to happen is that you are anyways going to outsource. You are really going to be a company which is going to focus on innovation and drug discovery. But that has itself become a very big challenge. But now if you are a CEO of a company, what do you think you would like to do? Would you like to be a generic manufacturer? Or would you like to be a drug discovery guy? Or would you like to be just a outsourced manufacturer? So 3 choices. Drug discovery guy, that means you are focusing on R&D. The second thing is going to be that you are actually going to be a manufacturing guy. Or the third thing could be that you are a branding guy.
The trend is more towards becoming a generic guy. The reason is generics has now evolved into also getting into hardcore R&D, and that is where the combination of both research at the same time having the manufacturing capabilities also will gel together, and then that's why we are seeing that today generic companies are also growing heavily, and the global pharmaceutical companies are also now partnering with the generics for research and manufacturing.
Okay.
So today the scenario is getting more into the generic, a more competitively sustainable and profitable.
Great. Let me ask a couple of more people what they have to say on this. Yes, Murali.
Hello?
Yes, Murali.
Am I audible?
Absolutely, Murali. But you're not visible.
See, I think okay, I think my camera.
Yes, now it's okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I think the previous speaker, I think, kind of said quite a bit. I'll just see. In fact, my option was plan 2, which they should have done at that point of time. Yes, it's right, because I think the industry has moved quite a bit in terms of outsourcing and things like that. So probably you have a choice of developing at one end, and you can always produce it at some other end and still take it to the market. To that extent, I think the industry is kind of quite evolved at this point of time. Do I attempt to answer on the choice of the generic versus the R&D and
manufacturing? Yes.
The third-party supplier?
Yes.
See, I agree with the previous speaker in terms of I think the generics would kind of bring in a lot of money today. Because this will be one of those things from the 5 forces model, if I have to comment, will be least regulated by the governments. Mostly, in fact, the governments would probably not get too involved in generics because they're already there in the market and probably are priced lower. From a supplier point of view, I think you will find enough and more suppliers to get
the product manufactured at whichever geographical location one needs to address. Labor would definitely be high. Capital would be mostly depreciated capital, because I think people would be producing over a period of time. So it's easier to operate on this space, and there'll be enough volumes which will also be there. So I too would think that going the generic way would definitely be more profitable. From an R&D point of view, it's pretty difficult at this point of time, because we also see in this case where the developmental life cycles are increasing, but the product life cycles seem to be decreasing. So you're actually investing huge money in developing the product, but your product does not have a life to stay for a long time. Different countries have different kind of regulations. What could be a patent and a serious issue of patent infringement in one country may not be the same in some other country.
Yes, yes.
So getting into this kind of developmental one could be extremely risky, and would be very high investment oriented kind of a thing. Third party supplier, you don't get, if profit is the motive of being in business now, the profits are determined by somebody else. So you just get to produce at rates what different companies would want, and you're not going to maximize profits unless you have scale. So to that extent, I see generics to be one of the most a viable option for one to get into.
Great, Murli. What you're saying is, I think as a businessman, I think I'll really have to agree with you. But then this kind of decision, if you really look at it, this is an individually rationalistic decision. And if all of us start taking this individually rationalistic decision of really going into generics, then there is a huge problem at hand, because the huge problem at hand is going to be that there are newer sets of diseases that are really getting into the market. In terms like people are really getting infected with or whatever. You have HIV, you have things like say H1N1s or whatever. So there are new things that are really coming up. And you would need drugs for taking care of this as well. But now since you say that R&D is a very risky strategy, how do you think you can negate this? And governments would also have a limited kind of investments that they could actually make. Of course, they could fund a few projects, but they cannot fund projects across the board. So how do you really answer this now?
See, it's quite valid, because if everybody gets into making generic drugs, then obviously we're going to have issues. Now, the point is now, I think I see a government to have a very critical role in this picture, because everybody operating in the industry will be operating for making money. So nobody is really going to say that, I'm going to be of service to people. So it's only the government which can actually bring in this. So probably you might see changes in terms of patent regimes. Now, the number of years for a particular product to have a patent, or the type of molecule that can be patented, or the type of process that could be patented. I think the government could probably, kind of extend the span of patents. They could bring in new kind of areas within the patent, so that they can cover certain kind of new developments that one can get in. Plus, the governments, I think across board, I think most of the institutes, they have either a Part 8 or they come under the government bodies in many countries. I think they should leverage the capital of the research scientists that they have in these institutes to work on more developmental, rather than, teaching what is already existing. So probably a change in the way the government functions and the research institutes or the academic institutes operate in the world probably will have to start looking at this more seriously. So I don't see the way it goes, the businessman is anyway going to invest unless they make patents. A patent is valid for say 20 years, 30 years kind of a thing.
20 years,
nobody is going to invest that kind of money.
20 years, what everybody is really talking about. But then I think what is the problem is that once you've actually found something, it takes you about good 8 years to really even take it to the market.
Make it to the market, yeah.
Because of the FDA regulations and the testing phases.
12 years is.
Okay.
So that's why I'm saying, it has to be, most of the research should be, initiated by the governments in terms of new drug development.
Any other solution
and
that comes
probably,
to your mind? a better solution.
The other one is looking at it purely from a business point of view.
No, I have
you amalgamate all, you buy. Yeah,
no,
sure.
I have an issue here. When you actually talk about, say, government doing some kind of an intervention, I think the role of the government should be more as a facilitator than anything else. It should not be that the government should be investing.
That's right.
So, if I say government as a
I'm
facilitator,
not saying investing.
Okay.
No, I'm not saying government investing, but I'm saying they need to look at the kind of regulations that they have in place currently and kind of work on the regulations wherein you will have entrepreneurs willing to invest in R&D.
Okay.
Wherein their interest is taken care of for a longer period, or the taxation regime, in the pharmaceutical industry allows them to price the drugs at a particular level so that they are able to recover the cost of R&D at a faster pace.
Okay.
So the $1 billion investment on a drug which is going to be sold at 1 cent or 2 cent, it's going to take enormous amount of tablets or capsules to be sold before somebody recovers the $1 billion investment.
Now,
so I think the government should relook at the...
Because what you're saying at 1 cent or 2 cent, it's actually a very far-fetched thing, because that doesn't really happen. At least for the first 8 years or 10 years, if you really talk about drugs, like the kind of returns that goes to pharmaceutical companies are very high. Viagra has given something, I was just studying that, sorry as a bad example, but I think they've made something like close to $8 billion. Pfizer has made $8 billion out of that particular drug. And if you really talk about the third generation antibiotics, where the patents have still not released, something like say Augmentin, still companies are really making loads of money on it. Fairly expensive proposition or whatever. And I think per day cost of that drug in US is close to about $6.50 or $7 for 1 day of dosage. So that means there are huge levels of profits that are coming in there. But still, what you're saying is right to an extent. Cost would also be very high. Okay, so that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. But then if I really still ask...
Obviously for a research scientist...
Yeah, obviously for a research scientist...
Sorry, okay. I was just saying if a research scientist is going to cost X in the 90s, I think it must be a 3X or a 4X today.
Okay.
So obviously, in fact, the facilities, the availability of resources today, I think everything would have manifolded by this time. So, and there are enough and more drugs are already available. So what you're actually trying to look at probably in one end of the society is a life expectancy increasing drug. The other place you're looking at very basic drugs.
Okay.
So the market I see is more for the basic drugs, like you take Africa, Asia, and kind of countries where probably the consumption of basic drugs are going to be high, because the regimes are out and you're getting into generics, and we probably would need that.
Okay.
And life expectancy drugs, I think the markets are pretty small, which is largely our Europe and American markets.
But just a side statistic,
probably,
side statistic, incidentally, India and Africa are going to be the capital for AIDS in the world, so there has to be something that has to be done for it. But then again, like what I was really trying to come to a great set of points here. I'll just take one last point here before we close the session and move towards closure. Yes, Rajiv, you had raised your hand.
I was just wanting to say, and coming from a little bit of a manufacturing background, or having spent some years in manufacturing, I would say it is very important, this is my view, for companies to focus on manufacturing. Does not necessarily mean they have to do manufacturing.
Exactly.
Let me just try and make it a little bit more specific to Eli Lilly. If I look at what they say, that in development of their production process, in somewhere in the case they say they have a process research group, they have a process development group, and then they have a bulk manufacturing investment that they need to do further down. Now, it is very important for a company like Eli Lilly, or for a company like Tata Motors, or for a company like Ricoh Auto, to think about the process research group and the process development group. How can we make the manufacturing better? The minute we stop if we come to a phase of this stage 1, 2, 3, 4 globalization, where the companies who have the the mind and the experience and the skills to stop thinking about improving manufacturing and just pass it down to a set of new contract manufacturers coming out of China because the government is giving them roads and power and machines, etc., etc., then the development of manufacturing will not happen. And I'm not really saying this for any esoteric needs that manufacturing should be developed. Then what I'm saying is it is important for companies to invest in the technology of manufacturing.
Yes.
They may not necessarily do manufacturing.
Absolutely.
So if you look at now, what Eli Lilly is saying is that we used to be a reactive company when it came to manufacturing. We used to do it, but we were probably not making that as our strategy. So if I was to choose from plan 1, 2, 3, I would actually choose plan 1 and plan 2.
Okay.
I would at that stage not go in for plan 3 simply because of, basic mathematics saying I don't even know today whether what I'm researching on is going to be
successful or not.
Even phase 1 trials. So let me restrict that portion. But number 2 sounds absolutely wonderful. In fact, whatever little bit of data that is suggested, throws up huge numbers for 2. So that is there. Even from an auto standpoint, Tata has developed a nano. I was thinking of another interesting thing, and I don't know how you or the classmates would say. If the cost of the product, if all of it is material cost, so let's say whether it's a drug that is sold for 4 rupees or 40 rupees, or whether it's a car nano that is sold for 1.25 lakhs, or a BMW that is sold for 40 lakhs. If the cost of the product is nothing but material cost, then I would say for that company, manufacturing is not important. If it's, but if a company is in a business where the cost of the product or service that they're taking to market is much higher than the pure material cost, I mean, there is some value that is created not
in the
just
manufacturing
in the R&D and marketing, but also in the manufacturing. So if that value of the manufacturing is, let's say, this much today, if and the companies who are best capable of thinking about how to, increase their value, stop doing that, then it will be, that portion of value creation would go away. So important to focus on manufacturing. Who does manufacturing? In 1991, the choices were probably Eli Lilly to do it themselves. 2009, choices are much more. Don't know much, but I'm sure they are much more.
Exactly. So, great set of points, Rajiv. I think I fully agree with you that we have to really focus on manufacturing. Manufacturing is extremely important, and because and coming to your framework, wherein you said if it is just material cost, then it is probably not important. But if there is a value add that happens, then it becomes an important process. I'll go with that kind of a framework, and it probably makes a lot of sense. So we have to focus on manufacturing, and companies will have to really invest in, say, technologies for manufacturing and so on and so forth. If you really look at, say, Maruti as an example, you're a supplier to Maruti, but Maruti looks at manufacturing as a very important paradigm for them, and they've actually outsourced a lot of activities to various kind of ancillaries and everything. And still they really come up as an aggregator who's very, very strong. So it becomes important for us to really look at manufacturing. And in case of, say, pharmaceuticals also, manufacturing will play an important role because that is going to define the price of the drug in the final market also, and probably your profitability also. And in case of, say, generics, manufacturing is extremely important because that is where you are really going to be competing on. If you're a generic player and if you're not really able to scale up and if you do not have control on costs or whatever, then you're actually going to be dead anyways. But then there was one question that I really wanted to answer was like, if government is not really going to do R&D, what is the next step that is going to happen? In fact, there is a newer paradigm that is actually coming up, and with the advent or with the change that has actually happened in the last 20 years, and what they call as open source discovery processes. In fact, what's happening now is that there are what I call drug discovery processes, or there are R&D processes which are actually based on open source paradigms. And if that is going to really, if that happens, then a lot of problems of huge investments and everything could actually move away, and you could actually take your things to the market at a lower cost and so on and so forth. But in this case, what's going to happen is that industries are not really going to be patented industry then. I think companies will need to have the courage of saying that we would not really play on patents, we'll actually play on manufacturing and probably doing something else. And probably you could just look at, say, something like branding of a product or a branding of a thing, and then you could actually charge on branding. So that is what will have to happen. I think in the future is for open source drug discovery processes, and manufacturing is going to play a very, very important role in that, and companies will have to really brand their products rather than doing anything else and create what I call branded things across. There are going to be a lot of players who are going to do that, and that is already being seen. So if you really look at it, telecom is a commodity, but there are various brands that have actually got up in that market, and that's the same thing that is going to happen with drugs as well. So this is what I really wanted to tell today. So in this case, competition was segmental. Innovation is becoming slower and slower, but then you have to really find ways to really make money. You really have to find ways to continue with the drug discovery processes, and you have to really understand the importance of manufacturing. So manufacturing is important, but the next stage or the next thing for success is actually going to be open source manufacturing. So great, this is what we really wanted to do today. In fact, for our session on the 9th and the 10th, 2 full days, please be prepared for it. You would actually get your material sometime soon. I think Tuesday evening at the most you would actually receive your material on email. It's a small document that you'll have to read, and you will also know the name of the speaker who's going to be there on Friday, and I'm sure we're going to have an exciting time during the meeting. So be well. In fact, one last point, I want at least 12 of you to be there for the program. Otherwise, it is actually going to be a hugely difficult proposition to do an exciting bit of session there. So be well in the meanwhile, and look forward to meeting all of you in person on Friday. And if possible, we'll probably meet on Thursday evening as well. Thank you. Bye-bye.